Good. Hello, everyone. I was about to say good morning. Actually, that's a great intro to the pod. It's morning here. It's afternoon with our wonderful guest, our first European guest, actually on Brace for Impact. It is Amir. Amir, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, good
He
morning.
wants to say good morning so
Yeah, he
badly.
does. Want to say we actually all low
We're-
key rolled out of bed about 10 minutes ago. So for this, of course, Parks co-host on the far side as well. Good morning, Parks.
Good morning.
And yeah, it's great to have you on, Amir. You actually reached out, low key Parks. You actually reached out to me, Amir. It was
Oh,
like, when
wow.
you get me on the pod, and I'm like, let's just do it. All right, and here we
Yeah,
are.
I haven't seen like that's the thing. I was like, what happened to Benny's pod? I was like, God, I don't even see it anymore. And then all of a sudden, you just like pop me a message, brother, and I was like, perfect.
Were
Yeah,
you?
man.
Were you? Did you mean the old Twitter Spaces I used to do?
I think yeah, it was the old Twitter
Yeah.
space because I remember you got me to you sent me an invite to do one, but then because we had like a match or something that came up, I had to cancel like last second with you. I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, I had a that one went okay. I guess you could say it was not bad. I just not a lot of people in the esports space seem to be into Twitter Spaces for some reason. It's like it's
Well,
really weird. It's like the trading and like the finance world I'm in, that's all they do is Twitter Spaces all the time. And then like the
All right.
esports side, nobody does anything Twitter
I
Space. So
think
I'm
I
like,
think the problem was it was a mobile thing. Like you had, in order to speak and all that, you had
yeah,
to be
that's
on your
true.
phone. It was Twitter Spaces was a weird system. I agree that it was an interesting thing, but at the same time, we were looking. I was like, it's not working.
Uh, as I'm
But
on it every day. But let's get into what we're here for, and it's not Twitter and that absolute desolate land that it
it is
is, and
lit. It
that's
is actually for Twitter. What are
yeah,
your
low
thoughts?
key. Yeah, no, it's. Let's talk about coaching, actually, right? Because you have quite a history of coaching within. I don't even want to say the impact space because that would kind of do a disservice to you because you've been coaching within women's Counter Strike for at least I want to say it's been 4 years since have joined the scene in 2019, right? So,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about when you got into coaching and how you started?
Yeah, I mean, I basically got in towards the end of 2020. I believe it was either 2020 or 20. Honestly, time flies.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I also had coaching experience within the mix scene. It just, it honestly was just really random. I remember I just finished an event, and prior to me finishing that event, I remember I told my players I said to them, "This is it for me. This is the last event, so let's make it one hell of an event." I managed to win it, and when I returned back to the UK, um, I was partaking in a charity event for just to raise money for COVID and etc. And I came across a few female players, and I remember they said, "Oh yeah, one of them was my good friend Moraltis, who's currently playing in Spirit Female." And we were just like talking and catching up, and she's like, "Yeah, our contract ended, so we don't have a coach anymore, etc." I was like, "Oh, it's pretty cool. If you guys need a coach, let me know." She's like, "Perfect, yeah, you should come. You should come." From there, just out of random mere coincidence, I joined one prac. They tried me out, and they all said, "Okay, perfect. Why not? Come on ahead." And obviously, back then I wasn't too experienced, so I was learning as well on the fly. But I used the experience I had as a player and all the experience I had from Counter Strike into that moment, and it was actually really fun. I thought it was going to be very boring because it was just like a mini pit stop, you can say, for me. But then I realized that I enjoy this more than playing. It was very weird. And when I started to get to know the players more, and I started to get know more about the scene, and it was really weird because I was playing in the CS scene, like ACA, the cups, the tournaments, and I never have heard a lot of like from a lot of these players, and I was curious, how is this possible? So when I dug deep and I realized there was more events, there was more players, they were just like waiting around for an event. I realized that I have to do something to help keep the scene alive because I actually enjoyed coaching in the scene. I used a bit of the connection that I had in my organization for like tournament hosting called Lucifer, and we just basically got some money out of nowhere and started an event. We called it the Lucifer Autumn Invitational. We invited Nigma, we invited back then, oh God, what was it? It was Vizu female. These were the teams before they all made like bigger orgs. and we just basically played, and all the players that you currently see in today's Impact basically played there. Like you're talking everyone from Nigma, you're talking people from Astralis currently, people from NIP currently. They were all there, and I just thought that I need to do whatever I can to keep this going, because when I joined, they said the first couple of things we talked about was, yeah, the scene hasn't been what it was like previously. It's just no more events, no more tournaments. So I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna let
And
this
this was
slide.
in 2020, right? This
Yeah,
was 2020.
2020, 2021. This is before Impact actually got announced the first season.
Right.
So I said to myself, like, I got to pull some strings to keep this thing going, and I hope that what I did had its impact to create impact. But yeah, it was honestly, it was through such mere coincidence, so random. Like, probably if I never said anything to Morales, it's like, hey, what's up? How's life? How's everything? Probably wouldn't have happened. So yeah.
That's neat. That's awesome, actually. I want to ask you a question. It might be a tough question about coaching, right? Because when you said you came into the scene in 20, into the coaching scene, at least in 2020, right? Being a player prior to that, what's it like coaching a veteran player like, I believe now she just goes by the name Julie, but she used to go by Monkey D. Julie, right? Because this is a player that has had, I mean, over decades of experience within the women's scene, starting around in like the 2010, the first event really in 2010, but then
Yeah.
coming into the women's scene pretty much uh, full stop in 2015, and having somebody on the team that you're coaching that has, uh, I don't want to say more experience, right? Because that's might be disrespectful to your playing career, but certainly a wealth of experience within the scene that you're now trying to coach in.
I mean, Julie definitely had more experience. There's no denying it. I do face the facts. I have been in situations before that I've been around players who had more experience than me, because when I started, I believe I was only like 19. So there are some players who are 24, 25 older than me, and they had more experience than me. Um, they might have played more lands, but I played more events than them majority of the time because it was just available for me. But to them, the lands that they played were more competitive because they're playing at their highest tier. Um, yeah, but when we were in Clown 5, because that was the first time I met Julie, we started to make Clown 5 a serious thing. Because prior to that, it was just like a mixed group who were just playing. I got two of my Finnish players with me as well, Milo and Walde. We joined Clown 5, them two with Missy, I'm sure you know, and Julie was there with Maimun. Uh, to be honest, with Julie, she would listen. She would listen. She was a very eager player at the time. There were times where, for example, we would be like, I don't know, I'll be saying, okay, guys, so for example, I'll be in theory work for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's like, we got to be doing this and this and this, blah, blah. And then, like, all of a sudden, Julia would just be like, oh, can we please play it? Can we please play? I want to play. I want to play. I was like, Julia, you got to calm down. We'll play in time. Just let me get through this. He's like, okay, but still, like, we have to play to test these out. I was like, yeah, yeah, but don't worry. We'll get there. But other than that, no, Julie was honestly a sweetheart. She was really respectful. She was very calm and collective when she needed to, and she showed her experience when she needed to as well. So I didn't really have any problems with her. And whenever it came down to it, where we had any sort of like uh opposite opinions, we would just talk it out and we would try to find the middle ground. To be honest, that wasn't that bad, to be fair.
Awesome. Parks, do you have anything, or shall I
No, I
continue on?
mean you drop a bunch of names right there. That's pretty much all of your roster currently on Aces. Patya is, I guess, the only one you didn't mention there. I guess somewhere along the line you picked her up. So no,
Yes, yeah. With Patya, it was a bit of it was a Patya's what is a bit of a like an adventure for me.
Mhm.
Basically in December when the season finished all around and Katowice qualifiers finished, myself and Missy sat down and talked about the future of Clown 5. To begin with, we wanted to rebrand the name and call it Aces because both of us thought that if like some top organization looks at it as a Clown 5, what is this? Like, this is a joke. So she thought of the name Aces, and we basically discussed what we're going to be doing. Moving forwards, we wanted to keep our Finnish players, our young players, because I really want to keep working with them. They have a lot of talent. The last time I saw anything close to this was when I was coaching in NSC and I had Kiara and Naomi, the current NIP players.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So the last time I saw that was there, and to me it was just like deja vu, and I want to do all I can to help them succeed individually, also in a team environment. And I also contacted an old friend of mine, Xenia, or currently known as Cursed, who also played in NSC. So I was basically trying to call out of favors and old friends. Um, Moving forward as well, when we found Potya, it was basically our number one priority to get Potya. She's just, honestly, in my opinion, she has the ability to be better than Anna within the right timing. She has the ability to be better. She's eager. She has a lot to give. She's got a lot of initiative, and individually, like she pops off. And to me, like if I can help my player become the best, like I'll take it. So we basically started discussions with Patya from December 2022, and she wanted to stay in her lineup until close to Impact. However, after her team and my team qualified for Impact, I had one final discussion with her, and I told her, I was like, listen, Batya, I've never asked a person like 9 times to join my team, and for you, I have. So there is something special with you, and I want to, be part of it, and I want you to be part of my journey. It will be a hard journey, but I can guarantee you at the end it'll be worth it. So, with a lot of persuasion, we managed to have her part of the lineup, and this meant that we would have to change our system quite a bit, actually. Because prior to that, we had Potya, we had Walde, who is our entry player currently opping. So she became like a mini Amanek in our team. So she was opping even though she's not an opper. So now that we have an opera, we have to fully change the system. So the players have basically less than a week to get used to the system. And in less than a week, we had good old Big Akipa waiting for us with months of experience together. So
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah, we played the first event. It was honestly very close, but off the bats, like I think you guys can also see on the HLTV stats, like Patia had her impacts like off the bats. I'm pretty sure for the first 2 week games that we played, she was our top performing player on HLTV, if I'm not wrong. And I just knew I was like, "Look, if we get this sorted ASAP, not only are you going to rip into our opponents, but we're just going to be dominating if we just get it right." So ever since then, we've been working to fix up a new system, and we also made another small additional change as well by bringing Cursed into the lineup and basically having Maymun step down for a bit. So now we have a lot of firepower on our side. And again, we are basically having to change up the system a bit more because we're a more aggressive side now. So now that we have basically a 2 week break before we play Astralis, we got a lot of work to do to just make sure that, we can get the system to a certain bit right. But other than that, it's crazy.
You're right, by the way. Patya was the leader in the on, or at least the highest performing in terms of HLTV rating in your latest 2 series. So
Yeah. She
yeah,
honestly like she's something else. Even in the qualifier, even when she was playing the qualifier, I noticed a couple times when her team was struggling, she was just there, and I said like, if as any a time that all four of my other players are struggling, she might be like a beacon to them. And honestly, if you guys are in my POV, like spectating her, you're just gonna lose your like freaking mind with the stuff that she does sometimes. Like she just pulls something out and she just throws the smoke, pushes the smoke, gets two, falls off, and you're just like, how? Like I would have died if I did that, you know? So
Yeah.
it's a nice breath of fresh air to have a great opera as her, and an opera who takes a lot of initiative and is aggressive, but at the same time she plays for the team when she needs to.
That's good.
um, I wanted to ask very quickly about Måneskin, right? Because she was obviously a part of your team, and now she's signed to Astralis. Talk to me, and actually, just you could almost bundle this into like Kiara and Naomi and Kaude, right? When you coach them, What is it like as a coach? What feeling does it give you when you have these players that you coach as part of these kind of, I don't want to say mashed together teams, right?
Mixed
But
teams.
more these put mixed teams, these more put together teams, and you see them go off to sign for these bigger organizations within the impact scene.
Well, to be honest with you, I only guided them, but all of the players that I've coached up to here, and they've made it big time. They put in the effort because there's one thing for me to tell them what to do, but in the end, they put a lot of work. Like I remember, when I was in NSC, when I was with Kira, Naomi, and Calde, like I remember I spoke to Calde on a couple of occasions, and I don't know if her role is still the same in CLG, but I remember I told her like basically I spoke to her a couple times. I was like, listen, you got to be like the big person in scenarios. You got to be the mature one in the scenarios to basically be making the difference in the games. And like, damn, she made the difference. Like a lot of times when we're playing the games, she has really good calling ability as well, Calde. Because before that, it was Bo Villain who was calling. But then Calde would also assist. We basically altered the system a bit for Calde to call, and the way that Calde sees the game is nuts. She sees it from a different point of view, and it was really nice to see this from an individual player. And honestly, right now, as far as I'm aware, Goose Breeder calls in CLG. But
Yes.
Goose, if you're seeing this, let let Calde call a little bit as well, because she honestly, like, we played when we played back then on Overpass, she created this really nuts default that I was just like, okay, how is it like every round they're playing to our freaking hands? And it was really good because it was like a mix of like Vitality, and I think it was another team, like what was it? It was Vitality and another French team. I think it was back then Double Pony, the
Okay.
way she created the
Yes.
default.
Yes.
And it was honestly, it was so cool because it was so systematic, and at the same time she had the ability to float call, which just made it awesome. I remember we were playing an ESEA game against a few friends of mine in the league. We were losing like 14-9, and then when she started to install this default, I kid you not, we won like 16-14. The clip is there. The clip actually is there of the person who casted our game. We call him Beast. He just lost his freaking mind because we came back from being so low down and winning. It's like it was nuts. And the same thing goes with Kiara and Naomi. Like both of them, very very talented players. I loved working with both of them. I to me like they were like my good friends. We would always joke around in practice. I would make sure that they're always comfortable in practice. Anytime they felt down, comedic coach Amir would come out to help them out because I couldn't bear to see them upset, and that goes to all my players. But with Naomi and Kiara, it felt really special, just because what these two had to give and what these two could do was honestly like nuts. Because when you start working with them and you see that like they have that like talent that isn't yet visible, but you know you can just help flourish it, it's amazing. And with Kiara and Naomi, hardworking. They would be up till like 3, 4 a.m. playing CS, whether it was DM, pugging, and all of a sudden like 3 a.m. like Kiara would message me say, "Hey Amir, we have, you know how we have practice tomorrow at like 11 a.m." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Just a quick question. What maps should we do?" Like, what nades do I have to learn? I was like, da 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 da, this and this and this. It's like, "Hi, perfect, perfect, cool." And I just like went off. That's it. That's what I really love about every player. Like when they put so much time into the game, and then they use my facilities because back, even especially back in NSC and even currently, I would be up to like 4 or 5 a.m. just like working. And if a player saw I was awake, they're like, I'm gonna take that opportunity. Like, what's up? Tell me some more. So yeah, it was great. And then when I moved past NSC, I met Manashin or Luna. And with Luna, she was a very talented IGL as well. Very talented. She was shot caller when we played. Again, it's weird because as far as I'm aware, like both Calde and Luna, like both went into teams and they're not. I don't know. As far as I'm aware, they're not shot calling, and it really pains me to hear it. But at the end of the day, I'm still happy that they're successful. But Luna as well, individually very good. She also had a very strong understanding from the game compared to a lot of other players that I've faced against. Um, and just in general, she was really talented. She was really hardworking. She would make sure that her documents, everything she had was perfection all the way. Along the way, she had some thoughts about like not playing anymore, because we were basically going through like a bumpy area where we were a bit inconsistent. But I basically said to her, I was like, listen, like this is the painful bit. If you just hold on for a bit longer, something good will happen. And I'm happy she took my advice because she's she's now an astrologist, so I would be very excited. But yeah, I mean, it was really upsetting to see her like step down. So I would have to like talk to her and just keep her motivation up because um, Luna is a player that's very responsible as well. Like she feels that if the team isn't doing well, it's her fault. When instead the problems could be elsewhere. So she had that trait as a leader, and I had to just like extract it out of her to make sure that she doesn't keep blaming herself that. But other than that, yeah, it was great times.
When it comes to, you talk a lot about the different players you coached and kind of their personalities and all this. When it comes to your style of coaching though, do you find yourself a lot you're more on towards the motivational side, kind of like a Kassad in terms of his outward personality was very motivating. I mean, I remember I forget which major it was, but he was literally behind. There was Renegades at the time. He was literally behind them, like screaming every single round to try and get them pumped, get them back into the game. I think they ended up winning because they were down as well. It was like 13-9 or something, and you
Yeah.
kind of pump them back into it. Do you find yourself being more of the motivational side, or is it also kind of there's a lot on the technical side, kind of like an Adren, if that makes sense, where you're very much you're kind of in the back room, you got all these ideas and stuff you're pushing forward, and a lot of the players are pushing stuff in to feedback in as well, but a lot of it kind of is just ideas coming forward.
Yeah, so that's actually a pretty good question. The way that I like to base my coaching style is also based off like it's a balance, but it's more psychological. And
Right.
this goes back to how I used to call as well. So when I used to call, I just really like to mentally mess with my opponent 4 rounds into the game. Just to the point that I used to say my rule is I'm gonna make sure that they stop trusting their IGL by round 5. That was my goal and priority. And I still do this. Obviously the more I sit and watch these players play and everyone, our opponents, even my own team, like none of my players early on understood that I was doing this. I would just sit quietly and listen to them and see what they're like psychologically and how they act in a behavior sense. And then I would use that to my strengths. And then the same thing again with like players when you watch them getting interviewed or when they're talking, how confident they're, etc. You just see where their weaknesses linger, where it can perhaps piss them off the most, you know? So that was like one aspect for me. Psychological, definitely, when it comes to a game plan, it really helps because I just like, for example, like against a team that's like really passive, I'm just gonna be like taking control away from you like there's no tomorrow. I'll make sure that whatever game plan we have is to choke you out. But in terms of like strategic wise, I do definitely come in a lot with strats. Like um, there's been some pretty cool CT and T side strats that I've come up with that are very unique, and the fact that they're unique, no one knows what it is. To them, they're just like what the hell is this smoke? Like what the hell is this? Why is this happening? And then it just comes behind it. So I would say I'm more of a balance between like psychological and super strategic as a coach. And in terms of like motivation, I don't know if you guys like watch football or soccer. I know Benny
Yes.
and I've seen
Benny
Benny talk about.
Benny is
Yeah,
actively wearing a Philadelphia Union shirt right now.
yeah. I was gonna say Benny definitely does. I've seen him talk about it, but I also take my inspiration from like football coaches. So example like Mourinho, Guardiola, and Sir Alex Ferguson. Like they're I don't know, you could be in my team and all of a sudden like you just hear me saying something Mourinho probably said like to his team just randomly or like something Guardiola said. It just doesn't like it's weird because like I just watch these guys because at the end of the day I'm still pretty young. I'm still learning to be a coach. So I always take inspiration from these guys who've won trophies, who've, motivated their teams when they needed to and who needed to yell and tell their team like what the hell you're doing. Like what you're doing is not right. You got to wake up and so that's basically what I use. So basically summary, psychological, strategic balance, with like a sphere of Jose Mourinho on Control.
Look, that means that if you do ever win Impact, right? Even if it's not like a land, just a regular season or something, right? I'm gonna need you to go on interviews for the ESL thing, holding a book, and just be like, "I am Jose Mourinho." Just drop it.
I actually joked about that because my friends know I did this. They've noticed a couple times I was speaking. They're like, "Why are you quoting Jose Mourinho?" And then I told them I was like, "Guys, don't worry. One day, if I win like an event, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna be like, you know what the result was? It's 2-0. That's two more champion. Just keep messing with people. Like, yeah.
If
I
I
love
speak,
it.
I'm in big trouble.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I wanted to ask too, the what it was like to get into season 3, right? Because I've been watching you guys for a while. I know that there was like a little bit of I don't want to call it a hurdle, but for lack of a better word, allow me to please. But a little bit of a hurdle in winning the cash cups because there was I think a moment where you were like runner up like or 3 or 4 times I think, and then finally it was Clown 5 when as NSC the runners up
Yeah.
as NSC, and then as Clown
Yeah.
5 you won, and then I know the team was very competitive in all of the qualifiers for season 1 straight through to Katowice, and then you come up on season 3 and you manage to get into the league. So what was that feeling like both for you personally and then amongst the team when you were able to get into Impact season 3?
Yeah. So the thing is, like, one thing as well is I just like to point out because obviously you mentioned in the cash cups we were runner-ups or we were first. So back when I was more of a runner-up with NSC, everyone was partaking in the cash cup, like everyone, because it was still pretty fresh, pretty new. But by the time I got into Clown 5, we didn't really use it as an avenue to win because I go by a philosophy about these cash cups. I just say, like, what's the point if I have some digital trophies, you know? So I just don't like believe in them. I believe the real like trophy for me is qualifying for LAN, qualifying for the league because that's where the scene talks about you the most, you know? Um so obviously up to there, yeah, we were pretty competitive. We were using it to get in, but we mainly used the cash cups as like an avenue just to get the players more experience because I have some players who need more experience in the competitive field just to get the nerves out of them, you know? So we use those for that. And moving forward, when we got into the league, I can tell you because what happened was prior to the league, about 2 weeks before, we unfortunately the events in Turkey occurred with the whole earthquake, and one of our players was the Turkish player cursed.
Oh,
Who,
yes.
yeah, and she needed some time off, and it was very understandable. We wanted to support her with the best we can, and when she stepped down, we had to find a stand-in to play with us. So prior to that, we were very confident we were just going to walk over. But after that, it became a bit high stress situation. So we had to find a sub. In the first qualifier, I called on to my friend Betsy, who I used to coach as well, Swedish opera. We made it. I think we lost against current guild in the first qualifier. It was an OT map in the first one. We won the Inferno comfortably, and then they just showed us who's boss on Ancient. Um, and then after that, the tension, like the levels of tension just started to rise amongst all the players because if we lose now, we have to wait 6 more months for the next one to come around. So then what happened was Missy called onto her another friend, Bruna, who stepped in Portuguese rifler. She was very good, by the way. And at that time when we were playing, we were trying like I was trying my best to keep the players' confidence up, but I had doubts at the back of my mind because there were some teams in here who've been practicing for a long time and have been together for a long time. So we going into this without any proper plans and just trying to play off the flow was a very, very like risky thing because we didn't even have time to do proper things. We even before the qualifier, I believe we tried like 6 or 7 players to make sure that they're the right one for us, but we couldn't find anything. In the end, Missy's like, you know what? I'm just gonna bring Bruno. Let's make it work. So playing the qualifier the whole way through, there was like a whole amount of us being under stress and under pressure. And the thing is, every game, like my heart was beating out of my chest because sometimes the scenario was too close or we would come across a team that's been practicing, but I was always there trying to remind my players, like, it is what it is. Like, be excited, push forward. You're nearly there. Like, I would even give them false promises. Like, we'd be down. I was like, guys, I swear, if we make it 10-10 now, they will be broken. They won't know what to do with their like ideas anymore. And they would just keep fighting and fighting. And that's what I really love to see about them. And that's what they keep showing to me in this impact season as well. They were fighting even against the worst odds. And it then came down to us playing against Flawless, which was a team that we played against last before the second qualifier. I'm not sure if you caught that game. The first game we
Yeah.
started on Inferno. We know that's okay. We played against Hellrose's Calling, and generally Hellrose's calling style is if there's a smoke, it doesn't exist. Push through it. So my play
NA style, yes.
so basically with this, it kind of became a problem because they kept pushing these smokes and my players were not used to it because every team we've played has respected utility and like Hellrose's calling style, especially on CT side Inferno, is like super, super, super aggressive. And because of that, we got caught out so many times and the players started panicking, stressing, and then it came our CT side. We couldn't do much about it. And just like that, we lost the map. I think it was 16-7. And right now, the whole way through, we've been winning. We've been doing well. And sometimes we've been comfortably winning. Now everyone is like, oh, damn, we just lost. Like, what's happening now? Is this the end? Is this where it ends? And I have to remind my players that we're playing our map next. It's our turn to, make it shine, etc. Blah, blah, blah. And when we went into our own map, we started off really well. We were very strong, very confident. I don't even remember what map we played. That's how crazy. Oh, we played Anubis. Yeah, we played Anubis. And the way we played Anubis, like it could show that Flawless didn't know it. And the reason I know that they didn't know it is because during the freaking freeze time or warm up, they were practicing utility. They actually were. They were practicing utility towards B sites,
Yeah.
etc.
And that's the map that goes overtime.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And it was crazy because we started our T site so well. We were like in such great lead, and then when we swapped over, I believe we got the pistol. We got a round after, but then we started to get a bit sloppy, and then Flawless started to crawl back against us. And then to a certain point, that there were times where I had to micro and change the setups to ensure that the players were not caught out. And that's the thing. When you're not playing in a team, when you don't have a system, you can't really use the setups you have or the aggressions that you have. So we had to play the most default CT side Counter-Strike possible. And at this point, when you see Flawless's score adding by one every 1 minute and 30 seconds, the players are getting nervous. They're getting anxious. The aggressive stuff they used to do, they don't do anymore. They're more scared now. They're more passive. So with a few timeouts, with a few motivation talks, with a few changes in the plans, we managed to hold on. We went into overtime. Now overtime, everyone's a bit more calm. We're a bit more reset. We managed to just, pretend it's 0-0 all over again. And from there onwards, we just pushed forward and we took everything we could on the CT side and the T side, and we ended it pretty strong in overtime. Then came overpass, and all I can say is when we won the knife round, like I don't know who was calling at that point in Overpass, but I read Flawless like a freaking Harry Potter book. Uh, we literally went exactly where they wanted to go for their pistol. We stacked exactly where they wanted to go on their eco rounds. We stacked exactly where they wanted to go for their first gun round. And then you could see the frustration in the enemy players because from how they played on Inferno when they were closer or Anubis, they were so close, their spacing became wider and wider. So we would pick one off and then the other one would come in 4 seconds later to help their teammate when they're already dead. So we started to notice this pattern and we wanted to abuse it even more. And we were relentless. We just kept abusing the solo players, the lurker. Like it got to the point that there was no lurker, there was no entry. They were just like all huddled up in a group and we just waited for them to execute it. Why push them when we could just hold crossfires? And that's it. We just did that, and we finished the game 16-1, and I think it was 16-1 or 16-2. And I honestly, to tell you the truth, I actually teared up a bit. I actually cried for a little bit because it was honestly the most craziest story that I could possibly be telling anyone in the future. Just how the odds were against us, how it started, how the pressure was building on us, and how moving into it, we were one of the favorites to qualify. But then after the first qualifier, we didn't look like that. So it felt so great. And when we came into the Impact League, we were confident. We acquired Potya. We're like, damn, we got more firepower now. So it was honestly amazing.
We're out of time, but I do want to just ask one real tiny question. You mentioned the Turkish player.
Yeah.
Oh my
Cursed.
god. Thank you.
Yeah.
Everything is okay with her now? Do you know if she's all right?
Yeah, so basically during the time period that she was off, we would still speak to her, like I would try to motivate her, and she felt eager to come back. And prior to her coming back into the lineup right now, she would join sometimes in practice sessions and join with me as a coach, and we just like watch the game together. But then eventually, we spoke to her about making some small changes to the system, and she agreed, and she was instantly back. And I'm very excited because I've been wanting to work with her ever since NSC because again she like in NSC I met a lot of young players that were super talented, and just to play with them again, it was a
Yeah.
different story.
Well, won't have to ask her 9 times this time, though, thankfully. So, it won't be a player you won't ask 9 times nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly.
We are out of time, and I do know you have prac in 15 minutes, so
Yeah, that's true.
I
Yeah.
I do wanna thank you very much for coming on, Amir. It's absolutely great to talk to you. So it's a joy to get, first off, your perspective and somebody who's been there pretty much since the Ambush Seasonal Cup days. Didn't want to ask you about those. They were a
Yeah.
bit messy all
Yeah, really.
around. Those were dark times, okay? But
That's
nonetheless,
true. Yeah.
it's maybe stories for a different episode for sure. But thank you very much for coming on. That's going to do it for our interview for Brace for Impact. We'll be back in still 2 Mondays times, about 9 days with the next episode as well. So look forward to that. Until then, thank you so much for watching and take care.